Joe Manchin essentially just ended Joe Biden's giant dreams. But here's the thing. That may save Joe Biden in the long run. Because if Joe Biden actually got Build Back Better and inflation continued to spiral out of control and the economy continued to stagnate, it just would not redound to Joe Biden's benefit. Now, I still think that the Democrats get shellacked in 2022 because they're going to have to own whatever comes next. And nothing great is happening for the next year or so. Inflation is going to last well into next year. At this point, that is being conceded by the Federal Reserve. The economy is not growing the way it is supposed to grow. The Democrats have created a box of their own making. They cannot get out of it with regard to COVID. The COVID panic mentality that they relied upon for world-breaking change has actually broken their world. But adding on top of that, a $5 trillion package would not have redounded to Joe Biden's benefit. So Manchin killing it might counterintuitively be actually quite good for Joe Biden. See, it took Bill Clinton the 1994 election before he realized that Hillary Care and giant capital gains tax increases, that these things were very unpopular with the American people. The way the American people sounded off was by giving Republicans their first congressional majority in 3 decades. Well, Joe Biden, he's getting the wake-up call early, but he's not getting it from a congressional election. He's getting it from a member of his own party in the form of Joe Manchin. Nonetheless, the Democrats are really, really angry over all of this naturally, as you would expect them to be, because, again, the idea was that now that Joe Biden was in control, they were going to get the Bernie Sanders presidency. They were going to get exactly what they had always wanted. Well, no, that's not going to happen anymore. So Bernie Sanders is now slamming Joe Manchin. Here is the socialist old coot from Vermont, who's now the thought leader of the Democratic Party, who's been defeated by, as it turns out, a majority of the American population. Let's not pretend that it's Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema alone who are standing against this bill, because that's not true. 52 senators stand against this bill. A majority of the Senate. This is not a matter of minority controlling. This is a matter of a majority controlling. And here's Bernie Sanders, though, who is lamenting this as he thinks fondly of Stalin.
I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do to the people of West Virginia, to tell them why he doesn't have the guts to take on the drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs, why he is not prepared to expand home health care. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in this country. You got elderly people and disabled people who would like to stay at home or forced into nursing homes. He's going to have to tell the people of West Virginia why he doesn't want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. I've been to West Virginia a number of times, and it's a great state, beautiful people, but it is a state that is struggling.
Okay, so I would just like to point out here that Bernie Sanders would not be elected dog catcher in West Virginia. So Bernie Sanders giving advice to Joe Manchin, who's been elected as a blue senator in a very red state repeatedly, is laughable. If Bernie Sanders believes that his agenda is so popular, why wasn't he the nominee in the first place? And again, I will never get over the fact that Joe Biden is such a fool that he was elected as a moderate and then he swung to the Bernie Sanders side of the aisle. It's totally crazy to me. Okay, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is also jumping into the fray. So she tweeted out, when a handful of us in the House warned this would happen if Democratic leaders gave Manchin everything he wanted first by moving the infrastructure plan before Build Back Better, instead of passing it together, many ridiculed our position. Maybe they'll believe us next time, or maybe people will just keep calling us naive. Either way, we cannot accept no for an answer. Democratic leadership, including but not limited to the president himself and House Democratic leadership, wrote a massive check on their credibility the night of the Biff vote in order to secure the votes they needed, promising passage of Build Back Better to every member who brought up Manchin. They personally promised they had a solution and Build Back Better would pass. It is simply not an option for Democratic leaders to walk away from Build Back Better, voting rights, etc. They must find a way, just as they promised they would when we raised this inevitability. Some of us don't have the luxury of giving up. We serve working, middle class, and poor people. We serve everyday workers getting ripped off, and immigrants, and black communities, and queer kids needing shelter. We will not walk away from them, and leadership can't walk away from them either. People can be mad at Manchin all they want, but we knew he would do this months ago. Where we need answers are the leaders who promised a path on Build Back Better if Biff passed. Biden and Democratic leaders. They chose to move Biff alone instead of with Build Back Better, not Manchin, so they need to fix it. We, as always, says AOC, are here to fight for this agenda. What matters most to us is that it gets done. But we cannot just shrug our shoulders and accept this as some Charlie Brown moment. Our entire democracy is on the line, so we need to get back in there and get this bleep done. Period. So, Slay Queen. Yeah, go for it. Seriously, go for it. The entire progressive wing of the party is super mad that they even got the infrastructure plan. So it seems that AOC is still committed to the idea that if the progressives had voted no on infrastructure and they had held together Build Back Better and infrastructure, that Manchin would have voted for that. No, he wouldn't have. literally the only thing that Joe Manchin would have voted for is the infrastructure plan. He was not going to vote for both. The only way possibly he might have voted for both is if Republicans were the ones obstructing the infrastructure plan, right? That was the Romney logic. But they weren't. Joe Manchin was not going to vote for a $7 trillion package because AOC and Ilhan Omar wanted it. These people are out of their minds. They truly do seem to think that like small boroughs in New York govern the entire country and that senators are not answerable to their home states. And Ilhan Omar joined the crew. She slammed Manchin as well. Here is the horrible congresswoman from Minnesota.
We all knew that Senator Manchin couldn't be trusted. The excuses that he just made, I think, are complete bullshit. It is really disheartening to hear him say that he has been trying to get there for the people of West Virginia, because that's a complete lie. There are just so many things that the people of West Virginia desperately need. And we know that he is not working on behalf of their interest. And I really am just completely disappointed and disgusted by his reasoning.
Well, I mean, if the people of West Virginia don't love Ilhan Omar, I mean, wow. I mean, when she speaks, the people of West Virginia listen. That is definitely a state, West Virginia, where Ilhan Omar, I'm sure, is wildly popular. Her perspectives are super popular in West Virginia. Again, the delusional nature of progressives who think they have a national program, as opposed to the reality of politics, which is you're always cobbling together a coalition to do incremental things. That is most of politics. And that it turns out Joe Biden did not have a mandate for anything remotely like this. It's amazing. And they will continue deluding themselves along these lines, the progressives, which means that Joe Biden should get with the program, right? If he had any brains at all, if he didn't have mush for brains at this point, which, I mean, physically mush for brains, then he would probably be pushing for a piecemeal approach to a lot of this legislation. But I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if Joe Biden can get there. He's so afraid of the progressive wing because they're the most motivated wing, even though they represent a tiny percentage of his party, that he's going to continue pushing this. It's utterly insane. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.